I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news airport edition. My flight was canceled. I slept in the airport. So I'm going to keep my voice down and not annoy my fellow passengers. Did you see President Biden fell off his bike? Stephen Colbert said the only thing falling faster is Bitcoin and Joe's approval ratings. Jimmy Fallon had 3 jokes. Poor Biden, even his bike was like, I'm sorry, but I can no longer support you. If you want to see the clip again, it's airing on a 24-hour loop on Fox News. I'm not sure that's actually a joke if you've had the TV on. And yeah, it's shocking, not the fall, but that Biden looks kind of good in bike shorts. Big news from earlier in the week. I have been traveling and haven't been able to get to this. A number of people working for CBS's Late Show with Stephen Colbert were arrested Thursday night at a U.S. Capitol office building after taping a skit involving Triumph the Insult comic dog. Among those arrested, Robert Smigel, who portrays Triumph. The CBS spokesperson said, Triumph the Insult comic dog was on site at the Capitol with a production team to record interviews for a comedy segment on behalf of The Late Show. The interviews at the Capitol were authorized and prearranged through congressional aides. Of the members interviewed after leaving the members' offices on their last interview of the day, the production team stayed to film stand-ups and other final comedy elements in the halls when they were detained by Capitol Police. Stephen Colbert talked about it in his monologue. He said after the crew finished their interviews, they were doing some last-minute puppetry and jokey make-em-ups in a hallway when Triumph and my folks were approached and detained by the Capitol Police, which actually isn't that surprising. The Capitol Police are much more cautious than they were, say, 18 months ago, and for a very good reason. If you don't know what the reason is, I know what news network you watch. The Capitol Police were just doing their job. My staff was just doing their job. Everybody was very professional. Everyone was very calm. My staffers were detained, processed, and released. A very unpleasant experience for my staff. Colbert then referenced Fox News coverage of the incident, where Fox News is suggesting the Late Show crew caused an insurrection of their own. Colbert said, first of all, what? Second of all, huh? Third of all, they weren't in the Capitol building. Drawing any equivalence between rioters storming our Capitol to prevent the counting of electoral ballots and a cigar-chomping toy dog is a shameful and grotesque insult to the memory of everyone who died. From The Hollywood Reporter, Dave Chappelle has decided against having his name attached to a new performing arts theater at his old high school. Chappelle made this announcement Monday night at the Duke Ellington School of the Arts in Washington, D.C. That event had been delayed since November after students had criticized Dave Chappelle for his special The Closer, which featured a number of jokes that have been widely criticized as transphobic. Chappelle apparently said the other night, the more you say I can't say something, the more urgent it is for me to say it. The theater will now be called the Theater for Artistic Freedom and Expression. Salon asked Michael Che point blank, are you leaving SNL? Here's an answer. I'm going to stay. Good. Now we can stop talking about this. I wanted to leave initially. I felt like I was leaving initially. Interesting, but the only reason I wanted to leave was to be able to do more things, take on more projects. I felt like at SNL I never had the time to focus. I didn't want to give up all my good years there, but we worked something out where I get an opportunity to produce a little bit more, do things outside of the show, and my workload's not the same. Hopefully that's a commitment that we all stick to and it works out for everybody. But I do love being part of the show. I do love everybody I work with. I just felt like it was something I had to do. I had to leave if I was ever going to do something out of there. Now it seems though I don't have to. So I'm going to stay, stick it out, and see if I get the best of both worlds. So I wonder if that means he'll just read someone else's jokes, that he won't be in on the writing. Maybe he's pulling a Pete Davidson and just showing up on the weekend and doing the bit. I don't know. I like Jay. I'm glad he's staying. Jimmy Kimmel has apologized to an artist for not saying her name correctly. I've been doing this too. Jimmy Kimmel said, the accent marks at the end, it's on the E, so it's actually Beyonce, not Beyonce. Who knew? I didn't. Kimmel said, last night, my wife, we put the kids to bed. My wife was looking at her phone and she's like, oh my God, I thought something terrible had happened. Turns out Beyonce is releasing a new album. And I just want to say to Beyonce that I am sorry for screwing up your name for 20 years. I mean, you said you told us say my name, and we didn't listen. The Epoch Times reports 2 Florida police officers who leaked news of comedian Bob Saget's death before the family was informed. They've been temporarily suspended. 2 officers suspended for 81 hours, weird number, without pay for violating the department's dissemination of information directive. The report said the 2 law enforcement agents' leaks resulted in an influx of media inquiries at a time when Mr. Saget's next of kin had not been notified and homicide unit detectives had not even arrived at the scene. Comedy Central's Daily Show gets another spin-off podcast. This one with Dulce Sloan and Josh Johnson. The producers say the show will turn Sloan and Johnson's unpredictable office banter into a weekly war of words about topics big and small. Patton Oswalt was in Boise, Idaho. He tweeted, I've never been to Boise. It's nice. Beautiful day. I got here a day early. I'm going to be at the Morrison Center. And then he said, look, there's a big inflatable beat with a guitar. Anyway, going to wander around your city now, and I'll see you tomorrow night. An hour later, he checked out the Boise Basque Center. And he said, did not know Boise had a bass quarter, but here I am. This is really hard to do in an airport lounge. So let me just tell you what happened. So I got, long story short, I'm going to tell the full story on the Travel is Back podcast episode that comes out on Thursday. But I got here last night and I'm at SNA John Wayne Airport. And did you know they have a 10 p.m. curfew? I did not either. And because people suck at boarding, we were really slow and we missed the curfew and we got kicked off the plane and I slept on a bench all night. Not particularly well. And all that's kind of fine, except I'm asleep and a couple shows up at like 4:25 in the morning. The entire airport's empty. I mean, I have the pictures to prove it. And they have to sit on the bench next to me where I'm sort of kind of sleeping and start having a conversation. They can go hose themselves. Chortle has the nominees for Best Comedy Podcast in the British Podcast Awards. The nominees are Cold Case Crime Cuts. That's a fun show. I was into that for a little while, making fun of all the tropes of murder pods. Also nominated Come Into My Kitchen, Ralph Jones and Daniel Nils Roberts. Don't know that one. Drunk Women Solving Crime, Jamali Maddox's Spooky Stuff. My Dad Wrote a Porno, The Skewer, The Staff Room Podcast, This Is Gay, This Paranormal Life, and Tiddling About. Now I'm thinking I probably should have put in a submission. Hey, remember the Scrubs reunion that I was excited about? I think something's going to mess it up here. From Deadline, Donald Faison, you know him, he's Turk, and Abigail Spencer are set to star as the co-leads opposite John Cryer in Mike O'Malley's multicam comedy pilot. Untitled Comedy centers on John Cryer's character Jim and Spencer's character Julia, who, after an amicable divorce, decide to continue to raise their two young kids at the family home while taking turns who gets to stay on with them. Okay. Navigating the waters of divorce and child sharing gets more complicated for Jim when the owner of his favorite sports team, Donald Faison, enters the picture and wins Julia's heart. Donald Faison will play Trey, owner of the Boston Celtics, a proud MIT grad, and Julia's new fiance. That sounds weird. Can we not make that one and just bring Scrubs back? Speaking of doctors, Tom Segura told the LA Times, if he weren't a comedian, he'd probably be a doctor. And then they asked, if you were a doctor with a billboard slogan, what would it be? Segura said, my slogan would be, let me hook you up. I'd get all the cash buyers. In my picture, I'd be holding an IV bag in one hand and a bottle of pills in the other. And from IndieWire, Mr. Bean. Rowan Atkinson got in on cancel culture. He says it's comedy's job to offend. He spoke to the Irish Times that it does seem to me that the job of comedy is to offend, or have the potential to offend, and it cannot be drained of that potential. Every joke has a victim. That's the definition of a joke. Someone or something or an idea is made to look ridiculous. I think you got to be very, very careful about saying what you're allowed to make jokes about. You've always got to kick up. Really? What if there's someone who's extremely smug, arrogant, aggressive, self-satisfied, who happens to be below in society? They're not all in houses of parliament or in monarchies. And that, from the airport, is your comedy news for today. You know the lockout and all that. If I ever get home, I'll use a proper mic. See you tomorrow.